Hello, and welcome to LeaseQuery's Accountant's Angle, a podcast where our experts answer your most burning questions regarding accounting topics, upcoming pronouncement changes, and financial technology. I'm your host today, Jason Parker. I am a Senior Alliance Manager here at LeaseQuery. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Stefan van Duyvendijk, an accounting operations evangelist at FloQast. LeaseQuery and FloQast today have a strong partnership. We'll be discussing a little bit about the partnership as well as the logic behind technology automation in the workplace. Now, before we dig into the content, just a little bit of background on Stefan. As we mentioned, he currently works with FloQast, but his previous career experience spans both public and private sector accounting. He worked 5 years at KPMG. And so both Stefan and myself happen to be KPMG alumni in the audit practice. Stefan has also worked as a corporate controller for Kodiak Cakes, a private equity-owned consumer packaging food company, and he also served as the U.S. controller for Skull Candy, a global personal tech CPG. As far as some areas of expertise that Stefan has today, he has worked with several clients on ASC 606 implementations, as well as with his own organizations. He also works today trying to reduce financial close timelines at FloQast, accounting operational efficiencies, as well as enhancing system integrations and implementations. And so, Stefan, with all of that said, we are very happy to have you join us today, and we're excited to hear you talk more about your personal experience and ways in which we think business automation is beneficial.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jason. Really appreciate it. And, we do, like you were saying earlier, we have a great partnership with LeaseQuery that we plan on really leaning into in 2023. I think we both our companies look to kind of shift the paradigm of how we do work and how we approach business and accounting in the future. So that's what I think a lot of what makes us work as partners so great.
One of the benefits of LeaseQuery working with FloQast, obviously you all have had a significant amount of success in the accounting space. And with the partnership in mind, for our listeners to be aware of, we actually have an upcoming webinar that will not only involve FloQast and LeaseQuery together, but we are also involving one of our co-partners, NetSuite. And in general, the topic is going to focus on automating accounting processes using technology, of course. But I do think that there is a really interesting angle here, given that LeaseQuery does now have a native NetSuite application called LeaseQuery for NetSuite, and FloQast has an existing extremely strong partnership in that NetSuite space. So we're going to talk on that webinar coming up about how we all work together to tackle accounting automation. I figure going into the webinar that you'll be a part of as part of the panel, what do you think are some of the most important aspects relating to how, say, maybe FloQast relates to these other technologies and how all three of them work together to help automate technical accounting processes?
Yeah, I think, we have a slide that you'll probably even see within that webinar that I'm hosting. But when you think about your accounting function, you have certain kind of like core deliverables you're providing across a spectrum. And part of that's transaction management. Part of that might be, reporting, budgeting, planning, compliance. And you kind of have all these different workflows that span the spectrum of what accounting and finance do together for the organization. And the way we kind of look at it at FloQast is, those individually, each one of those silos need to be tackled, right? Your ERP is definitely helping you in your transaction management space and potentially in your reporting space and a little bit in your compliance space. But it's a lot of times it ends up being a little bit siloed and a little bit segmented in each one of these workflows. And so what FloQast aims to do is we really want to be kind of like the peanut butter on top. You spread it on top, and we get all your workflows to make these things work and talk seamlessly. And as my experience in being a controller and even in public accounting is, it is really hard to get that communication to be really strong amongst people and departments, and especially when you break out of accounting And it's really hard to have people have the right perception about how and what they are doing fits into a broader organization, what's an impact on the organization. And so our workflow is really there to help you do that and automate that. So instead of spending your time sending emails, trying to hunt someone down, chat them on Slack or Teams or Zoom or whatever you use, it's really meant to just automate a lot of that. And then we kind of spread into other parts of the accounting workflow with trying to speed up your reconciliations by automating what reconciliations we can do, kind of help you get visibility into reconciliations, your flux analysis, and all these other different aspects. And then I think what we really like is working with good, solid partners within each one of those kind of competencies or deliverables within the organization. So we love working with NetSuite because we really like the way they, I think a lot of people think, oh, NetSuite's so big, they've been around for a long time. But when NetSuite started not too long ago, they were really challenging the paradigm of what an ERP needed to be and how it can help a tech company. And that's why we like them so much. And they still try to keep that in their DNA. And the same thing with LeaseQuery. LeaseQuery is looking at that technical accounting aspect and saying, hey, this is really difficult stuff to do, but there's a lot of mundane aspects we can leverage for you and make it easier for you, and challenge in the way, accountants have done that work in the past in these different siloed spots, whether it's transaction management, technical accounting, reporting. And so we really try to just work with who we think are the best partners that align with some of our mission and vision and our DNA, which is let's do it better, right? Let's challenge that. Let's automate the mundane. Let's turn our people that are tactical assets into strategic decision makers in the organization. And it's always been really great for us.
Yeah, that's great. And just a note for our listeners here, if you'd like to register for the upcoming webinar, we will include a registration link in the show notes. And if you're listening to this after the live event that we have with FloQast and NetSuite, you can also access the recording of the webinar in the show notes as well. So you can have access to that conversation. Now, Stefan, you mentioned something I think is extremely important is all three of these technologies, FloQast, NetSuite, LeaseQuery. The idea here is that these technologies are challenging the pre-existing relationship that a lot of businesses, especially smaller private businesses, but even really as big as public companies that use maybe antiquated technologies, it's challenging the processes that they've had in place for a while. So with that in mind, what are some common questions you feel like clients are asking FloQast about leveraging technology as part of their close process, maybe some gaps that they anticipate that an expert at FloQast, for example, would be able to overcome and explain?
Yeah, there's a wide range of challenges. I think one of the first things we always get is like a lot of people don't necessarily see a reason to elevate their close. The reason being is they're focused on more tactical little fires within the organization, or fires that they consider more pressing or important in the organization. And I've felt that in the past where I'm like, well, we're closing in 8 days. That's pretty good. Do we really need to close faster? What are they going to do with that decision making? That was early in my career as a controller. And then I realized, when times got tough, your close really is this catalyst within the organization that changes all of your disparate siloed processes, whether that's procurement, whether that's your revenue cycle, whether that's your treasury cycle in totality, budgeting, all those things. And it pushes it through this catalyst of change, which we call the close, and turns all that information, compiles all that information, it turns into downstream decision-making data, right? It's essentially saying, here is now information to change how you approach the business tomorrow. And when you are struggling to find the right mix of inventory to make, the right offer to put in front of customers, what inventory to put in what warehouse across the world, it becomes incredibly important to have good information in front of you that has been vetted in a timely manner. And so all of a sudden you realize, if I can shave off 3 days, you can make a decision 3 days faster, and we might be able to, prevent half these fires that we have, or half these budget talks that we're having later on in the month. So I think that's one thing that people don't understand, is the importance of timely and quality information within that decision-making cycle. But then I think the other issue is I think a lot of old school CFOs and CEOs and controllers don't even realize that there's tools in place that can help them with this stuff. You walk into audit companies and they have a whiteboard where they have most of, but not all the tasks listed out for people to go up and cross off when they're done with the close, right? And it has to be updated very manually. It only has so much space. And it really isn't the greatest and effective way, but they've been doing it for so long. And a lot of companies just feel like, oh, that's so cool that we do this. But there's a better way with technology to do that. And so that's the other thing, is just like just having the understanding that you can do that stuff. I think a lot of people just don't realize how important the close and the decision-making process is to the broader organization. And the other aspect is, I don't think a lot of people realize that if you can save 3 days of time for your staff and your seniors and your managers on the close, and they can spend that time instead helping the broader organization with their fires, you really create an immense amount of bandwidth to address these organizational issues. So I think it's a bit of a prioritization issue that a lot of people struggle with as well.
Yeah, no, I love the response. And I do think that there's, not only the time aspect of this, but there's a monetary value to all of that time you save. And especially considering the economic environment we're in, regarding inflation, potential challenges within the economy going forward. What do you anticipate are some of the upcoming challenges that businesses can actually prioritize solving for, assuming that they can leverage technologies to reduce the amount of time that they're performing what we would consider to be maybe more of the mundane aspects of the accounting and finance world? Obviously, we mentioned inflation, but what do you think the impact might be for some of these organizations going forward, challenge-wise?
Yeah, and I think within the marketplace, the Wall Street Journal had an interesting article just out yesterday that pretty much brought up the fact that for the last year and a half, the recession has always been 6 months away, right? According to economic experts. And it doesn't really matter if it's 6 months away or never. The reality is that the marketplace is acting as if it is. And so businesses are reacting in a way, they're using the recessionary playbooks now. And you can see it with, the unfortunate layoffs we're seeing in the marketplace and stuff like that. But what you need to anticipate is, there's going to be higher scrutiny on the budget. Why? Because cash is king, and really watching how you spend and what you spend is going to be really important. And you really need to the business leaders, not just your executive, but just different leaders within the organization, are really going to have to justify all their spend for the year. So when you look at that, you can just see that most businesses are trying to shore up their operations in facing uncertain economic conditions, right? So when you look at that, I think what CFOs and controllers and organizations need to really focus on is, it's not always people are always looking at spend like, well, I can't spend because I need to be really efficient. But the reality of it is, in business, if you're stagnant, if you're not spending, if you're not trying to grow, you're dying, right? So you need to still be looking forward. You still need to be looking for opportunity, and you still need to be looking to eke out efficiencies. And that requires spending, and that requires making changes. The beautiful thing I think about leveraging technology in this space, whether it's a FloQast, which I truly believe in. I use their tool, and when I left and I said, okay, I've done what I need to do at Kodiak Cakes, it's now time for me to move on. I wanted to go to a place I really believed in, and I believed in FloQast. But even if you're looking at LeaseQuery or NetSuite, the idea is that this technology can really take your people that are doing mundane tasks that are really inefficient, right? You're really not getting the most efficiency out of your people when they're sitting there just spending time sending Slack, sending emails, chasing things down, doing a lot of busy work within Excel or whatever it is. And you can make them into forward-looking assets instead. So looking for technologies that take away and automate that really mundane work, and for really relatively cheap compared to your FTE, and then taking those people and having them look forward for opportunity for growth during these economic times. That's really what businesses need to be doing during these, uncertain market conditions, because it really doesn't matter if the economy comes out strong or it doesn't. What matters is how you react to it. And the way to react to it is invest really strategically. And really, we think investing in your people through technology is the way to go.
Yep. Yeah. And to me, no matter the economic circumstances, the more value you can get out of the people you hire by leveraging their ability to perform maybe more critical tasks than some of the mundane aspects that these technologies solve for, I think is always extremely important. So honestly, Stefan, that was fantastic. We appreciate all of the detail that you can provide. And we're also excited about the upcoming webinar between LeaseQuery, NetSuite, and FloQast, as we mentioned before. Just a reminder, if you'd like to register for the webcast coming up, I believe it is on March 24th. You'll be able to register using the link down at the bottom. And if you have missed the webinar, you will be able to watch the recording via the link as well. Now, of course, thank you again to all of our audience members for subscribing and listening in to LeaseQuery's podcast, The Accountant's Angle. We hope you can join us for future episodes as well. And if you are not subscribed and you would like to, you can get those new episodes sent directly to your inbox. So once again, thank you to Stefan from FloQast for joining us today, and we will see all of you on our next episode.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, LeaseQuery. It's a pleasure to work with you guys.